up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume.
Pork chop sandwiches.
We shall never surrender.
Evil shenanigans.
What's going on? Glad to see you here. Glad to be here. Just let's come in and talk about a couple things. Still haven't got anything to talk about. Put into the comments. So if there's anything in there, I would redo the research and we can dive into it. Whatever you wish. Anyway, a couple things I'd like to get into today. First, we did the plurals of animals. What I would like to do next is a use of a semicolon. Okay, this is one that is just baffled man for for a long time since its creation. And as a joke, obviously. Let y'all know my wife. She has her master's in journalism, so I get corrected on my phonetics all the time. So this is one that, with, of course, with us in our education time frames, argue about certain things. This is one of them. But number one is the Oxford comma. And the Oxford comma is really simple. It's a listing of three things. Okay, this is Destiny. Destiny is into sports, large dog breeds, and quantum physics, of course. And Destiny has blue eyes, great skin, and a 3.9 GPA. Okay, these are all perfect uses of the Oxford comma. It is a list of three. The first list will have a comma after it. The second list will have another comma behind that, and then a preposition and or, and then go into the third. Okay, using the semicolon. Bear and Linda were ready to party. Obviously, they were not invited. They did not go. Bird was invited, though. The groomsmen hired Sally as a joke. They think Brenda's a whore. Sally thought this was a quinceañera. Sally loves meth. Tim and Kayla were good parents. The CPA were still interested in them. It wasn't even his kid. Tom's a good dude.
A transitive verb, for instance, as John fucked Shirley. As an intransitive verb, Shirley fucks.
Okay, well, that's the semicolon. The next one I would like to, the last one, is the use of the word whom. And I'm not going to lie, y'all, this one has kicked my ass since I learned it. I hate this word. And it's the difference between he and him. So, who, you could use he. So, or if if you would use he, you could use who. If it's him, an objective pronoun, you could use whom. So yeah, I'm just gonna go and leave those right there. So anyway, so of course with it not doing yesterday, not doing so well on the no chance of the hood sack, we're gonna get into that again to make sure that we could pull out a good card here. So okay, go into the chance first, and these damn photos came out again. Okay, it says the photos of your glory hole days resurface. You are fired, and your wife wants half. That's never any good there. No good whatsoever. So there's that. Yeah. All right, so let's go to the hood sack. The hood sack should be a little bit better, hopefully. It hasn't been lately. And go pick a card and oh, Officer McHiney again. He's just got it out for you. I don't know what it is. Says Officer McHiney says jaywalking equals the dong. He smells like booze, coke, and regret. But hey, look at the bright side. You do get a free night at the shelter. So hey, there's always that. That Officer McHiney's always looking out for you. I tell you what. But moving on. Since we did presidents yesterday, I would like to move on with that again. So Thomas Jefferson, and of course, a very excuse me, I'm sorry, John Adams first. John Adams, very very likable person in American history, very well read, very high in the magnitude of jurisprudence, just brilliant mind, brilliant mind. But then again, he is the American character that struggles with the fame that comes along with it and what he expects to be given for what he thinks he is. So, that being said, he is someone that thinks that he should be rewarded well for for his hard work and his acumen, but he runs into a lot of problems. Now, I'll give it to you. He did, and this is an argument a lot of people have. He did birth the United States Navy, and thank God for that. But what he did, the only thing that's absolutely proven is he signed the bill into law, and that was 1794, if I'm not mistaken. So 1794, we get a Navy. Okay, so great. One of the greatest, probably no, hands down the greatest Navy in the world. So worked with those guys a lot in my time in the Marine Corps. Just shit hot on their stuff, but this is the problem that we have with him, and this part's not a problem. One of the only presidents of that time frame not to own slaves. So that right there, and really funny that speaking that Abigail Adams, his wife, is one of the only ones that's been discussed of having an argument of the slave problem. I mean, and there's got to be a stronger word than that. I'm just not going to look for it right now. But the whole idea of birthing a new nation of independence and liberty, but only for a certain amount of people, that to me is just absolutely mind blowing. I mean, how could this be a thing? And Abigail Adams is one of the outspoken proponents for this. I mean, she let John have it a lot about it. We're putting this country together, and of course, it's not for everyone. But then again, she also brings in her side, which the female side. I mean, females didn't get to vote until like the 20th century. So it's one of those things, and it's just absolutely mind blowing that the argument of slaves didn't fall into the whole Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So, that being said, from what I have discovered, even when you're in like fourth and fifth grade and you read about that, you're like, oh yeah, the Declaration of Independence, that's badass. Yeah, screw them, they're oppressing us. But wait a minute. Well, why is there a problem with slaves in the Civil War 100 years later? And you're like, and I guess we didn't take care of it when we had the chance. And that's thinking as a child, and that's, obviously it is definitely a big problem. So, talking about the Declaration of Independence, fun fact of that, if you ever get the opportunity, read the second page of it. It is fucking hilarious. It is pretty much, the word tyrant is used, and this is a document basically saying King George is a tyrant. He is, is knee deep in tyranny and oppression, and it's pretty much where the Americans at the time are putting him on blast. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're actually petitioning him to come to America for trial. And it's like, wow, that you're talking about some big dick energy there. All right, here you are at getting your freedom, and then no, it's like, yeah, we're not done. We want the king too. Yeah, okay, come on, you get us meet our backwoods bumpkin justice, as I think that, as he put it. But anyway, that was really neat. How it was, of course, putting your name on that was a death sentence, and they all knew it, and that was a really cool thing. But it's one of the things that I love a lot about that time frame and that sentiment. And I have this license plate in my garage from New Hampshire, and of course it has the old man in the mountain, and it says "Live free or die," and you're like, wow. And I'll never forget it. When I was in the Marine Corps, we would walk to the parking lot to get to our vehicles, and a good friend of mine, Trevor, he pointed it out one time, this license plate, because we had a kid, not a kid, sorry, one of our Marines that was from New Hampshire, and he had that license plate, "Live free or die." And I remember my friend Trevor goes, "Dude, that's a fucking radical statement." And you kind of think about it like, yeah, yeah, it is. Wow. And, so that was the sentiment at the time. It's one of the reasons why John Hancock put his name on there, so that way King George didn't have to put on his eyeglasses. And it's kind of like, if he did, he probably saw the two fingers that were probably at the end of John Hancock. But anyway, that was kind of a cool sentiment that, a different time, signing a certain piece of paper, get killed. But anyway, back to the whole thing with the slavery. There was several of the southern states that were within the Continental Congress that were very volatile, to say the least. They weren't. Not everybody agreed with this whole thing of independence until the Olive Branch letter came back, saying that you pretty much you'll hang from the first tree, but and the oppression will get worse, with this Olive Branch petition they sent out. But Georgia, um, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they all needed the labor of the slaves. So it was really hard to tell them, all right, look, we're gonna put this whole revolution together and Declaration of Independence, and we're giving everybody the free choice to govern themselves, because pretty much the argument of slavery, they did not want to get into it, because they knew damn well if they said, all right, slavery's abolished, that they would lose South Carolina, Georgia, and the states, and North Carolina with the tobacco farms and all the everything that was in within resource of the lower states. So, with that being said, it was just kind of brushed under the rug, and if, I think it's like one of the words that's nowhere in the Constitution until later on, until the amendments that the 13th, I think it was, that actually addressed the thing of slavery. And after that, it also says that slavery is only available for punishment of federal crimes and state crimes. I think I'm not too sure. I'm kind of spitballing here, but I know that it said that it is legal for punishment, not for as in like an inalienable right. You will be a slave because of your skin color, whatever. But yeah, so really sad that wasn't taken care of. But John Adams, he had a very good presidency for the most part. But the one thing that does come to haunt him later on is the Alien and Sedition Act of 1798, and that is pretty much at the time is basically going after libel at the time. Of course, most of the word that was written, that was passed, was written, obviously, in newspapers and stuff like that. But it was also saying that an alien of a country that we're at war with can be extradited, get kicked out. Excuse me. And, or just straight up deported. And this is one of those blanket statements. That can mean anything. All right, so if you're of a foreign country in war with you, you can get rid of almost anybody. It's a blanket statement. So if you come out, you're from France or war with France, it would basically be, all right, well, America sucks, this, that, and the other thing. France is so much better. You're like, okay, you're going home. And come on, it's one of those. It's kind of a blemish. I would say it's a blemish because the way that it was used, and then when it came out was just kind of bad timing. And it really didn't seem. Also, there was I can't remember what it was, but he also got in trouble for several delegates going to France and losing money to Robespierre. I can't think of his name. But anyway, it came out to be a certain. I'll have to look it up. I'll figure it out later. I'll do a correction at the back end But yeah, it's had to do with the French, Robespierre, and then them getting screwed out of money to meet a delegate in French, which they should be able to do for free, and they lost the money, and the Hawks of War wanted war because of it, and it's just, long story, stupid, and it really wasn't all their fault. Maybe it was, but I'll get back on that. But of course, with that being said, he had a decent presidency until the Alien Sedition Acts. That's when it just kind of got. So, of course, one of the biggest deals too is that he wants to run for re-election, and that's where things get kind of bad. Of course, this is when he has his separation with Alexander Hamilton, and at this time, Thomas Jefferson and him are not good friends. It just is really completely soured, and they don't like each other. And then it comes out to where this is the first time when we actually see mudslinging, and it comes out in the paper. So they're basically talking shit about each other in the newspaper, and it's coming under certain names, pen names, and it's a lot of how the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists were taking care of business in the early Constitution drafting days, where they were firing shots within the newspaper. And of course, the newspaper at that time was our Twitter. So I mean, that's our Facebook and hell, our YouTube here. It was us. That's our our main form of entertainment. So that was read by everybody. So if you wanted to sling some mud, that's how you did it. And then really funny is that how it comes later on with John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson, and that one gets is 3 times worse. It's like on fucking steroids. But those are actually kind of, when you read them, they're funny. And it's not like today where, where you're talking about the Epstein files or Hunter Biden's laptop or stuff like that. I mean, it's obviously not that bad. But anyway, the mudslinging does get worse as time goes on. And he actually gets a lot more entertaining. So, anyway, he runs for re-election against Thomas Jefferson, and I would look at the numbers, but I know he didn't get smoked per chance, but he did get beat. And at this time, they were still running it as in whoever got the most votes was president. Whoever got the second was vice president, I think. And I know that's how it was with John Adams. That's how John Adams in the first administration got his vice presidency, was through the coming in second in votes. So, yeah, but anyway, Thomas Jefferson wins presidency, and John Adams, of course, first person sitting in the White House, and he has to leave the White House as general public, our population. So it's pretty embarrassing. First president to not get, a second term, and it's kind of like, wow, okay. And then, with the Adams boys, it turns out to be kind of a trend. And John Adams does not leave politely. He's not there to congratulate Thomas Jefferson. He's not there at the inauguration. Nothing. He just kind of disappears in the fart in the wind, like he's gone. And very, disgraceful, because he thought that, for the work he put in for his country, he deserved a lot more. And the American people didn't see it that way. So, it's their vote. So anyway, Thomas Jefferson comes in. So Thomas Jefferson's presidency is pretty interesting, and it's really funny because he does get re-election. But I'll give you just a heads up: he does not put it on his tombstone. He doesn't want anybody to know it. Obviously, in the past, we know who he is, and of course, his face is going to go everywhere. He didn't know that, but yeah, he left it off his tombstone. He did not want it on there at all. So anyway, the first thing he does, he goes and he's the first president. Obviously, is the third president voted, so it's not really a big deal. But he walks from the Capitol building or the Capitol area to the White House. So him and Jimmy Carter are the only two to ever do it. So I mean, it's neat. And I know if I did, I'd kind of want that too. Just walking on the street waving to the people that voted you in, and it's kind of like it's a good parade and pomp. Parade and pomp and circumstance, whatever you want to call it. It's nice. It's a good gesture. But yeah. So with that being said, he also does something else different. He does not deliver his his State of the Union addresses to the Senate and Congress. He does it by letter, which is it's really funny because he has a really high nasally voice. So he is one of those people that is kind of like, yeah, I really don't want anybody to know this flaw in me. Like, okay. So anyway, that so here you go. And they got this guy pretty much single-handedly penned the Declaration of Independence, which is, believe it or not, one of the finest pieces of American literature. It is actually really well written. And of course, he got really upset when they made changes to it. And I can see why now. I mean, first I'd be like, man, that's kind of petty, dude. I mean, if you're going to vote on it, you need to get whatever we can get through, man. And then he's like, yeah, I really don't want you to change that. And they're like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? We need to get this through, man. And it's like, fine, whatever. You know, it's like, well, okay. Whatever, dude, whatever. So they pass it on. And of course, I noticed the second, I mean, I mentioned the second part of it, which is actually pretty ballsy. So anyway, so yeah, that happens. And he is already at odds with Alexander Hamilton. And come to find out, Burr, the guy that kills him, Alexander Hamilton in a duel, is his vice president. So it's like, it just, I don't know, it's just weird that, and of course later on because of it, Burr goes to trial and brings, you know, it's like one of those things that like, you like Thomas Jefferson spoke for this guy, and next thing you know, he's, you know, going into, you know, court for murder. So, anyway, he's at odds with Hamilton because of, once again, imperial thought. It's just, once again, with this Hamilton guy, yeah, he's his whole thing of the Fed's great, and you know, being Secretary of the Treasury, he's you know, pretty smart guy. But then again, at the same time, he wants empire, and it's exactly what the revolution was to break. And jumping right back into it, a lot of people thought he was batshit crazy. He was like, dude, what are you? You know, I think it's even John Adams said that either you're stark raving mad or I am. Good day, sir. You know, it's just, you know, he didn't want to hear about it anymore. But yeah, and of course he ends up dying, and you know, Jackson gets brought down with it. But of course, at first Jefferson really didn't agree with his way of the Treasury and doing everything, because everybody had their opinions on how they would run things. But then again, it's working. So here we are. We got France now. France is still, you know, at odds with England. They're fighting, blah, blah, blah. Napoleon's running out of money. So, looks around and goes, hey, what are we got around here to pawn, man? It's like, get rid of that shit over there. Don't need ski boots. There's no snow. And we'll sell that. And, oh, what about the Louisiana, the cut of Louisiana all the way up turned out to be the Louisiana Purchase. So this is the first time a president actually gets put at, and it's really neat because he does get torn from left to right. He doesn't know, because he knows that he needs to put this forward on a vote. But then again, he's like, you know what? This will you know, multiply America by 75%. No, excuse me. I'm sorry, 200%. It's like, we have to buy this, you know. And it was like, what if they say no and I miss this opportunity to grow America? So he just goes, well, fuck it, we're just gonna buy it. So he sends out Lewis and Clark to check it out, and you know, and of course when they come back from it, they're like, oh, dude, you won't believe it, you know. It was like, yeah, but they come back, and the really funny thing is they give him a bear cub as a pet. He kept it on the White House lawn. So that was Jefferson. So anyway, so yeah, Jefferson buys the Louisiana, does the Louisiana Purchase, and next thing you know, we're growing big time. So that was pretty much, I mean, you could be said to go against almost everything that the checks and balances of the all the other parts of you know, the other branches against the executive are supposed to, you know, prevent. And And it's like, I would like to be a fly on the wall and that go, hey man, if you go ahead and let me do this shit, I'll let you do that, little under the table stuff. And I would like to know like more of what happened in that, because I know that there's not a lot that can't be said. It's just kind of everybody turns a blind eye, and it's like, hey, we just went double in size. Who cares how we did it? But later on, you'll see that Teddy Roosevelt does something like that with the Panama Canal. Kind of does something that may not be the most orthodox thing, but damn it, we get what we need, and that's that. So, once again, it's protecting shipping lanes again, and that's going to be the part of presidencies. It's just going to go on forever. They're just going to make sure that the shipping lanes are right, and of course, Britain at that time is being obnoxious like they always will be, and France is too, because a word doesn't get out that, hey, look, we just got money from the United States. It doesn't make us allies, but it kind of makes us favorable to each other. And of course, it takes forever for that word to get out. A guy that's been on the sea for 6 months, and the deal was made like a week ago. You're like, oh shit. But anyway, but yeah, the shipping lanes, trading, and all that other stuff is kind of happening then. So Jefferson really doesn't get caught up in a lot. He gets caught up in getting his slave pregnant. So he does something that I wish a lot of other politicians would do. He just doesn't talk about it. So people ask him, and he's like, he does not bring it up. He does not talk. He does not answer their questions. So as a master politician, he just, whatever. And it just rolls off his back. He doesn't care. But it's Sally Hemings, I think was her name. And well, anyway, he goes on. He wins re-election, and of course, when James Madison comes in to replace him, it's just kind of he doesn't like. He's not happy about the time that he spent there, and he eventually just leaves, and nothing really happens besides that. So he has the Louisiana Purchase. Doubles the United States, and that's at the time that's pretty much all that's going on. So chooses not to go to war with anybody, which at that time it was kind of prevalent. You should, but they didn't. And you have the Hawks crying for war with with whoever they want to fight. Those Hawks come out and they basically they catch Madison by surprise. So Madison comes in. Madison is the basically the writer of the Constitution. He is a Federalist, and he I take it back. He's one of the Federalists, one of the biggest Federalists that write the Federalist Papers, and talking through the media and stuff like that to get their messages out about certain ideas. But he is a funny guy. Shortest president we ever had. He's my height, so he's like 5'6". And of course, he's married to Dolly. Dolly's a fun chick. Everybody loves them. They're just he's got known to have a body sense of humor. So like I said in the last one, I mean, dick and fart jokes. That's kind of where he's at. So he likes to live and play stuff. She enjoys some weird shit. Oyster flavored ice cream. So, yeah, weird shit like that. But she's supposed to be known as the first young first lady to come into the White House that actually starts making changes to the decor, and then start having taking over from Jefferson with state dinners and stuff like that. And of course, she would host them, come in elegant, and basically bringing in the first need for there to be an amount of money to be given to the first lady, because the first lady's got things she needs to do too as well. So, and yeah, so she does that. Both of them very, very approachable from what I read. So anyway, the War of 1812 starts. So that's basically Madison making the choice to go to war with Britain. So it's like, all right, 1812, you do the numbers. I think the revolution was over in, well, it went from 70, 85 to 83. I don't remember. But here we are at war with the same country again. So um, Britain knows that they didn't really weren't defeated. They just chose not to fight anymore. They had so much going on in other countries, India, wherever else, France, and they thought that the whole thing with America was just kind of like, all right, we'll just cut our losses here. We don't let's not fucking with these guys. Let's let them go. If they wanted to hem us up, they could. They would have pulled all their assets and thrown them at us. It would have been a defeat, and it was to the point where they just didn't want to fight us anymore. And thank God they didn't, because it was if they would have went full attention on us, we really would have had a problem. And I'm not saying we would have lost, but I'm not saying that there really wouldn't be too many more people left over to call it a country, and we'd get invaded by the next country. It's kind of like if you watch the movie Troy, whenever they're talking about retreating, it goes, well, how long before the Hittites invade? And that's exactly one of the questions that's always there after you win a war. When's the next person coming to pick off who's left over? But anyway, so with that being said, we're at war with Britain now, and it does not go well at all. I mean, it's to the point where they actually could beat us again, but they're just like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? But I mean, overwhelming losses in Canada, Detroit. They landed in Washington, burned down the White House. So it's really sad to know that the White House we have wasn't the one that John Adams stayed in. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was the same place and the same foundation, but probably, not the same, because it did in fact burn down. That's when the whole story of Dolly Madison saving the picture of George Washington and several other things. So yeah, there's that, and that's great and all, but did give us the whole thing of the national anthem. So Francis Scott Key, lawyer, he's taken. No, in fact, I think he was an adjutant. I'm not sure, but he gets taken as a prisoner and put on these nasty, I mean, godforsaken prisoner boats that are off the bay there in Baltimore at right off Fort McHenry, and it's really sad that bridge just came down not too long. It's the same like place that he was being held there, but I digress. But he pens the national anthem there, and it's like, wow, cool. It's and there's a lot of people that get that wrong. They say Fort Henry, it's Fort McHenry. And, yeah, don't get that wrong. It's kind of like how Glory got Battery Wagner wrong. They call it Fort Wagner. Well, it's off the water, douchebag. So it's a fucking battery. Anyway, it's the only thing to their notice that Glory got wrong. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and leave that there. But yeah, so we get our national anthem, and of course, it's one of those that still to this day, I mean, it gives you chills when you hear it. That I'm so sorry about that. That it's so sad that this what happened, and what he went through. But then again, at the same time, when you woke up and the flag's still there, you're like, all right, after everything we went through that night, it was absolutely worth it. So that's cool. One thing that's annoying as hell when you go to see that flag in Washington D.C. They have it in a room where it's dark. And of course I get it. You don't want the colors to fade. But number one, it's just obnoxiously big. It's really big. I mean, it seems to be about the size of the roof of my house. And it's like, I don't know why in the hell we need a flag so big. Now I know that flags, like garrison flags, the ones that most bases will fly on Sunday, the massive ones, or just any truck dealership in Texas, they have the massive flags, right? Well, that one in Fort McHenry was bigger than that. And it's like, and I guess it was, a humongous FU to them to, have a flag that's so big. But the other thing that we do get out of this is the Battle of New Orleans. So, of course, you got Andrew Jackson down there. And Andrew Jackson is by far the quintessential American. He very young during the American Revolution, and I'll talk about him at length. He's going to have his own personal thing because it's just an interesting character with a lot of victory and probably, I mean, hands down, the worst scar on American politics and American history, besides slavery, and internment camps. I mean, obviously we get into the Trail of Tears there, and that's just absolutely terrible. But it was a young I mean, he was a young kid in Tennessee. His mom um, had to take care of him and his brother died from a fever. And I think after that, his mom shortly died too, so it was just him. So he had to learn to take it. So he had to grow up fast. And there was in the house he was in, the British officer, of course, took over the quartering of the house, and he made it his house. And he took off his boots and he gave them to Andrew. He said, "Here, clean them." And Andrew, like, "Go get fucked, man. No, I ain't doing it." So supposedly officer drew a saber, took off part of his ear, and I think he still didn't do it. So I mean, he did not have any love for the British. So here he is, Battle of New Orleans, and in the Battle of New Orleans, he does not have um, regular enlisted troops. I mean, this is just a ragtag. I mean, you had Punas, Creole, um, you had African Americans, Native Americans, and just the hodgepodge that, of people down there that were, trying to fight against the British. And of course, he had some enlisted, but not many. But then, he gets them all, he walls them up. I mean, walls up a certain area, and you know, it just beats back the British after each wave until finally, like, fuck it, we're not doing this anymore. But yeah, so I forgot what year that was, 1812, 1813. I don't know. I don't remember if the War of 1812 just landed for 1 year. I don't know. But of course, you get the glorious victory there at New Orleans that actually catapults Andrew Jackson into household name stardom. So of course you get him, but Madison gets out and he hands the reins over to Monroe, and I'll just stop with Monroe because Monroe was there just wasn't too much to him, and he was basically one because he's like the last founding father did not get it. So it's this. It's kind of like it kind of reminds you of a coaching staff where the offensive coordinator is now head coach. All right, well, he gets a job somewhere else. All right, now the defensive coordinator is the head coach. And they're like, okay, yeah. And then they're like, okay, we're going to promote the quarterback's coach to the OC. And then finally, like, well, the other guy the head coach gets a job. And they're like, all right, we're going to pick now the OC to pick it up. I mean, it was just all these people just falling in line to the positions that they were going to get. So anyway, and Monroe's going to stop this, but Monroe, most interesting fact about Monroe, if you look at the most famous picture of the crossing of the Delaware, he is the one that is right behind George Washington. And he's the one with his cockade hat or tricorn hat, whatever you want to call it. And he's really the only one in uniform, which I know that the painter made that on purpose to show everybody that it's, blah, blah, blah. We came from different places, but we're all in the same boat now, type bullshit. I completely get it. But, so that's a crossing of the Delaware with all the ice and everything else, and they make it into Trenton and take on the Hessians by surprise. And this is Christmas Eve, 1775, if I'm not mistaken. And Monroe is wounded in the femoral. And if y'all ever seen like Band of Brothers, that's where Hubler got shot in the leg by that Luger. I mean, and you don't have much time. You do not have any time at all. That femoral artery is just deadly. All right, they're able to tourniquet him, get him against the wall as they're just completely routing the Haitians as they got a mouthful of Christmas dinner and a gut full of beer, and they're just moving like a fed snake. They're just getting just routed. Anyway, they're able to get him against the wall, and they get him, protected. And I found that to be really interesting. I was like, all right, that's a Widowmaker wound there. Widowmaker. I mean, you're fucking done. But he's able to make it through this, with the tourniquet, and he goes on to be president, which is really cool. But at the same time, is that you have the Medal of Honor, which, say what you will about the Medal of Honor. I was like, well, if you're faster, you wouldn't get a shot. I mean, it's not something that's of, glory. It is. And one of the things that it's anybody that has a Purple Heart, you see it on the license plate, or you see a sticker or a pen or whatever else, it's a form of respect, and it should be. But the thing that pisses me off the most is that it has George Washington's fucking face on it. And it's just like, I wish that there was some sort of committee that would petition to have Monroe's face put on that, because Monroe really didn't do much. And, of course, he did take fire within probably the most important battle of, I mean, that's very arguably, I'd like to say it's top 3 for sure, because it did turn the tide right before 76, because 75 was just a terrible year. So anyway, definitely I think he should be on the Purple Heart. And George Washington's face everywhere. Dollar bill and quarter. You're like, all right, dude, I really don't want you on the the wounded, decoration that we have for all 5 branches. So anyway, so that's just leaving that there. Next thing that comes in order with him is the Monroe Doctrine, which is a very important form of documentation and legislation that is pushed forward. It's written by John Quincy Adams, actually, because Monroe, he's a smart guy, but Quincy Adams this time, he's salivating for the presidency, and he's trying to, and not to mention that he's been groomed since he was a kid, to be, I mean, not ever again do we see someone that's so well stooped with just experience, except for the other two would be Herbert Walker Bush. He was, he was very well, and then very well studied and experienced. And then there is, forgive me for saying this, but it's Hillary Clinton is another one, very experienced. But at the same time, I don't want any blowback on that. I'm not saying she should have been, but she was experienced compared to everybody else. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, let's go ahead and leave that there. Anyway, Monroe Doctrine, written by John Quincy Adams, and basically says, all right, nobody from Europe, Asia, anywhere can colonize anything on North America, Central America, or South America. It's the door's closed. It's pretty much saying that the land sale is over. So everything is, or it's like kind of like playing Monopoly, and all the properties are bought. And it's pretty much, it's the door's closed. I mean, no more settlements, no more empire for anybody. And it's invoked several times. So, and it's one of those blanket statements too. It's like, all right, so if you want to sail in the Gulf of Mexico, it's like we think that you're trying to colonize. So you're going to get a couple, volleys or salvos come across your bow, hey, get the fuck out of here. You're not supposed to be in here. So, yeah, it was a really important piece of legislation. So, anyway, that's the presidents. So Jefferson, I keep forgetting, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe. So those 4 people. So they could go in together. And next one's going to be Quincy Adams. And that one gets interesting because it brings in Jackson. And Jackson's the one that, and it's really sad, Jackson's the one that makes Quincy Adams interesting. So, yeah. So anyway, so there's that. And I'm going to talk about my toy today. So today I have Devastator. So Devastator is, let me see here, it's right there. Nice. Devastator is the first one to come out in the toy line. I think this was 85 because it's considered to be Generation 2. And it's first combiner set. So you have, and I can tell you their names, I'm even looking up. So you have Scavenger and Bone Crusher, Long Haul, Mixmaster, Hook, and Scrapper. So Each one of them obviously being a certain part of the combiner. And this was one of those that was really interesting because when it came out, um, the marketing campaign wasn't fast enough. It just wasn't. It's like you saw them on the shelves before you saw the commercials for them, and it wasn't coming out on the cartoon line either until after. Pretty much the drawers had to get them and go, okay, cool, fuck, we're gonna get these new characters in here, whatever else. But they weren't there. I mean, you didn't hear about them. So I remember I went to go buy. I think I saved up like $30, and Mom said, "Hey, we'll take you to Wins," which Wins does not exist anymore, and say, "All right, look." So just to cap on Wins real quick, if you hear the song "It Takes Two" by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock, he says something about going to the Wins and select it. So there's a Wins plug there. So you get it in a very, very popular song. Go to the Wins and select it. Yeah. Anyway, the this set came out at the same time as the Dinobots came out. So if you were a kid, you had to either pick the Dinobots or these guys. And these guys at the time, each one of them, I remember getting at Toys R Us. I think they were like $4.25 a piece. So now, I mean, obviously it's very affordable. So I can imagine now where these things would be a lot more than that. But at the time, you had to pick kind of like a path. So when the combiners came out, you couldn't just buy one because it's like, all right, cool, I just have one dude. So I remember I brought Grimlock and I bought Hook. Those are the two I bought at that time. Then I went to Wins. And I went home and found out that my friend Luke he already had a couple of them. I was like, all right, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish the combiner set. So I remember he had Mixmaster, Scrapper, and Bone Crusher. So he had to get he had Long Haul, Mixmaster, Scrapper, and Bone Crusher. He hadn't gotten 4 of them. So I had Hook, and he's the headpiece. The only thing we didn't miss was Scavenger, which was the right arm. So I remember I kept an eye out. So I remember it was maybe about 2 or 3 months later, we went to Toys R Us, and we were there. And of course, even at the time, we just stopped asking your mom for toys. She's going to say fucking no. So anyway, I saw Scrapper, and I'm like, oh, God. Number one, this toy wasn't for me. My friend Luke had 4, and I had 2, because this is the only combiner set that took 6. The other, they had a very big middle guy, leader. So this one's leader's Scrapper, and he's not very tall. He's the size as everybody else. So anyway, so I tell my mom, hey, look, this will complete the set, and we can make Devastator. And this is kind of a big deal. And I presented it to her, and she says, okay, you can go ahead and get it. I was like, ha, shit, we're going to get Devastator. Anyway, so I run home, call my friend. And I'm like, cool. Now, I felt like I kind of had a bargaining piece with him. I was like, all right, cool. I got everything you need to make Devastator. All right, well, we make Devastator. It had its luster for maybe about 30 minutes. Go, oh my, that's cool. And not to mention he's tall. I mean, it was tall, and it's a lot of pieces put together, and it's bulky, man. It looks cool, man. So about 30 minutes later, whatever. So I rode my bike home. A week later, his mom buys him Hook and Scavenger. So now all I have is Hook and Scavenger with nothing else. And by that time, it's like, oh, yeah, they're moving on to the next one. They started taking them off the shelf as quick as possible. And that's one of the things I hated about Transformers. Transformers were douchebags like that. They would move their products so fast. It was like the whole reason when they killed Primal. It was like, we got these new toys, Rodimus. He's cool. We got these new ones. And you're like, dude, we only had the other ones for like a year. It's like, come on, let them. At least let them grow up a little bit so we have them. But anyway, they were moving in the Constructicons and the aerial bots. So not the Constructicons, the Stunticons. So the Stunticons come in, and the Stunticons were the group that I selected and got all. So my friend Luke got all the Constructicons, my friend Chris got all the aerial bots, and then I got all the Constructicons. So I had to buy them one by one. So that really sucked ass. But the Constructicons were gone. So if you had 2 of them, you were not getting them. So one of the things, whenever I saw this, it was like, I told my wife and my family. I was like, for my birthday, I want you to get me the gift set of the Constructicons. And they said, you want the original or the, and I was like, I don't give a fuck. I just want them. I never had them. And it was really cool. I asked my one of my best friends, my cousin Cody, asked him. It was like, hey, should I buzz this open and form Devastator? And he goes, dude, don't leave them in the box. They're going to be worth a lot more. But the really cool thing about this one is the back art. And this is one of the things that you look as a kid is the back art. So the back art here shows a lot of them, and then this one's really big because of the size of the box. So of course, this is the first time you get to see Jetfire, and you see him with the full makeup of his, of the way that he's supposed to go together. You see the Dinobots, and then the funny thing about this is, there is a couple of Insecticons that are in here that were not made. I think there's a couple of like bees or moths that were never ever. I never saw them. Maybe they came out in Japan. They did that a lot. So, and the really interesting one is that you see Shockwave up there. And Shockwave was a really weird toy because he was made, and he was drawn, and he was in the first one, and they showed him, they left him behind on Cybertron, but the toy was never made. So I remember one year my mother got me, it was Easter, I had Shockwave in my Easter basket, and I was just like, man, it was like so cool because I was like, oh my God, I love Shockwave. He was tall too. He is a cool toy, man. He was one. He only had the single eye and had the two horns that came up, and then he had the gun in his right hand, I think, and it had the cable going. And he was like one of the only Transformers I know that took batteries. I mean, you could pull the trigger and make a noise. I wasn't too excited about that, but he was just cool looking, So, made a perfect gun too. It wasn't more like, when he transformed, he looked like a robot, and when he made a gun, it was obviously futuristic, but it was still cool looking. But the Megatron had that big thing come out, looked like he had a penis or something. It was like, rrr. But no. Anyway, that's the toy here, and yeah, Devastator's just one of my favorites. He's not very smart, but it's just the whole thing of brute force, and it's just cool. Thinking about like 6 people getting together and I'm forming one thing. The funny thing too is that supposedly, like in the lore, he's like every one of the Constructicons actually hate each other, and they only are happy when they form Devastator or something like that. So it's really crazy. But anyway, that's that. President's toys here, and yeah, once again, thank you for stopping by. If y'all want anything to talk about, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I'll look into it and we can discuss it. Yeah. So anyway, drive safe. Okay, so I said I'd be back with that whole thing about the problem with France and with John Adams. And that, as soon as I saw it on paper, it was called the XYZ affair. Okay, and pretty much what it was is that France issues a letter or a declaration saying, all right, you can start fucking with shipping. So they started screwing with American shipping. So, John Adams sent over an envoy of 3 people, and it was John Marshall, Elbridge Gerry, and not Elbridge Gerry, Pinkney, I think was his name, and another guy. I don't know his name, but so basically they come over to talk to the foreign minister, who is Michel Talleyrand. So Talleyrand here, what he wants, he delays them because he wants to make money for himself off of whatever he's plundering off the shipping thing. But what he's going to do, he's eventually going to agree with the Americans, and in the, what is it called, a quasi-war, and it only lasted for a short amount of time. Anyway, so these intermediaries of Talleyrand go up, and then they run into the envoy, and basically said that, yeah, he'll meet with you, but only for money. And that's where the opposite side, let's say like Jefferson's side, gets real. It's not Jefferson, but Jefferson's people, they are, and they're all doing impound the thing like, yeah, traitors, blah blah blah, for giving the French money and getting screwed is pretty much what happened. So they pretty much had to pay to see their hand. So to see the foreign minister, they had to pay a certain amount, and that's what they considered. That it was these three people, X, Y, and Z, and it comes out to be the XYZ affair and the quasi-war. So, kind of a stupid thing, but you should never have to pay to see a foreign minister, and they should have known better. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, I was just
bunch of ball-washing bastards.
Keep away from a runaround Sue, yeah. My little lips and a smile on her face, the touch of her hand and this girl's warm embrace. So if you don't wanna cry like I do, I keep away from a runaround Sue. Whoa.